and happy Wednesday. Today is our Tell Me a Story. So I welcome you to Tell Me a Story. And today, my guest is Vismaya Rubin, founder of uh, Living in Gratitude Today. And let me bring Vismaya on right now. Hello, Vismaya. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am excellent.
Good.
So I am going to pass this on to you. So take it away. Have fun.
So, hi everybody. I am Vismaya Rubin. I am a mental health advocate, founder of Living in Gratitude Today, and number one gratitude gangsta. What? So, three words changed the trajectory of the night my mother died. Live with her. Live with her. So, let me give you a little background. On last year, August 30th, I got a phone call from my mother. My mom was living in an assisted living facility and she was having a really bad day. And so was I. So I was driving home from North Carolina. I was super frustrated. I just found out my sister-in-law's mom had passed away the day before. I was sad. The show that I was at didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. And my mother calls me up at 8 in the morning and just starts yelling at me. Where are you? Why aren't you home? You put me in this rotten place. You need to be here. I can't believe you left me here. On and on. I said, Ma, I said, now's not the time to do that. I said, I'm about to get on a road trip for 10 hours. Please cut me some slack. You put me here. You need to come home right now. I'm like, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'll be there. So I'm on the road going from North Carolina to South Florida. And I got a few more of these phone calls and I was super frustrated. So I drove straight to her assisted living facility and she wasn't feeling good. Her stomach was hurting. She was grumpy. She hadn't been eating. The next day, I went to see her in the morning. Same thing, complaining of a stomach ache, still wasn't feeling well. The next day, Wednesday now, still wasn't feeling well. And finally, she called me up and she says, I need to go to the hospital. I said, okay. I called 911, had them take her to the hospital. She had emergency surgery that night. So now I was obviously feeling bad because I wasn't as compassionate with her as I could have been or should have been maybe on the day she was calling me to tell me that her stomach hurt. So she has this emergency surgery. Everything goes well until it doesn't. A couple of days later, she's still in ICU because she has a trach. They take out the trach. She's still not breathing on her own. They got to put it back in. And it was very interesting. It wasn't a trach, I apologize. It was the for breathing. So it was very interesting because during this whole time I was sad. I was sad, I was scared, I was frustrated, and it was all of these emotions were coming up, right? What's happening with my mother? Her body had gone through the surgery okay, but she still was not doing so well. So to make a very long story short, the Thursday before she died, I had some serious decisions to make. The hospital had been asking me, what is it you want to do? My mother had necrosis of the wound. So the surgery went well, but it wasn't healing. So she had necrosis of the wound, which means that areas around her surgery, the wound, were not healing properly. And it was actually dying. And they said, we could do that. We could do another surgery. We could put her through another surgery. And I had to make a decision. What would my mother want? So I said, I can't do anything until you call in a rabbi. Okay. So they wanted to call in hospice. And I said, before I speak to hospice, I need to speak to a rabbi. So Thursday happens. Friday, I don't hear from anybody. My phone is on. Other people are calling me. I'm going about my day. I'm sitting with my mother. I was in the hospital all day. So Saturday morning comes and the doctors come in and he says, well, did you talk to anybody? And I said, no, I didn't. He said, what do you mean? I said, hospice never called. The rabbi never came in. I said, and today's Shabbat. It's a holy day for Jewish people. How am I going to get a rabbi in here on Shabbat? He says, don't worry, we got you. Okay. So I was sitting there. Within 10 minutes, in walks a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi. So if you know anything about Judaism, for an Orthodox rabbi to happen to come into the hospital 10 minutes after I talked to the doctor, that's pretty unique in and of itself. Because on Shabbat, people who are very observant, they don't answer the phone, they don't do work, they don't drive, they're in synagogue, they're praying all day. So I said, how did this happen? And here's where miracles start to happen. One of the nurses heard the doctors talking. She says, don't worry, I got you covered. She knew the rabbi. She called the rabbi, who happened to be part of a special team, and he was allowed to use his cell phone according to Jewish law during that time. And he shows up. So we're having a conversation, and I said, I don't know what to do. I said, my mom's body is deteriorating. The wound's not healing. He said, what would your mother want? And I told him, I said, she would not want to keep going on like this. He says, well, you've got your answer. And in my head, I had been doing all this reading, and I was like, am I playing God here? Am I making a decision that I shouldn't be making? Once he said that to me, I felt much better. I said, okay. So then we called in. So hospice called in. But here's the miracle. If hospice would have gotten, I didn't tell you this part. So hospice said to me when they called me on Saturday that they called me Friday and they couldn't get through on my phone, which was interesting because I had no missed calls. I didn't receive anything from them. So Saturday, now I have hospice coming in, but I got to meet this rabbi. So he says, call me after Shabbat and let's see where we're at. Perfect. So hospice comes in, and the ambulance driver, the EMT, they were amazing. They said, come with us. You can drive with us in the ambulance, and we'll take you to hospice. Okay, so here's another miracle. We went from one hospital to another hospital. Well, in that second hospital that had hospice, you could only have 3 people in the hospital room. But because I went in the ambulance, nobody knew I was there. So remember, that's part of the story, because there's something magical here. So I go to hospice with my mother in the ambulance, and I call the rabbi after sundown, and I said, hi, it's Vismaya, we spoke earlier. And he says, I'm not a man of many words, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Live with her tonight. Live with her. I said, okay. And I had to think about that for a minute. Live with her. Which is kind of ironic because, in essence, my mother is dying and he's telling me to live with her. So 3 of my best friends decided to come see me that night. And it was Saturday night. They all came in. Now remember, we were only allowed to have 3 people in hospice or in the room. But because they didn't know downstairs that I was there, they let my 3 best friends come in. So they came in, we were talking, and I remembered what the rabbi said, live with her. We played music, we danced, we laughed. And it was this magical experience, because really what could have happened was we could have been very sad, solemn. We cried, for sure. We felt the sadness, but we remembered to live with her. So there was a lot of laughter in the room. There was a lot of joy in the room. There was a lot of telling of stories. And they spent so much time in my house. And my mother had known them since we were 17 years old. We all went to a high school in Israel program together. So live with her. And we did that. We lived with her. So they leave. And then I have a new crew coming in the morning. And I kept remembering the words of the rabbi. Live with her. Live with her. And interestingly enough, the night we got to hospice, when the doctor said to us, live with her, or when the rabbi said, live with her, when you go from one hospital to another, it takes some time for the meds to get ordered. It takes some time for them to be administered. So this was the first time in 10 days that my mother was cognizant. The night the rabbi said, live with her. So when she saw my friends, who she used to call her other children, when she saw my friends come in, her face lit up. She smiled. She could acknowledge conversations. She would shake her head yes, or nod her head yes, or participate. And it was the first time that that had happened since she had been in the hospital. So again, we laughed, we played, we danced, and she participated. So the next morning, I had that mantra: live with her, live with her, live with her. And it was gut wrenching because I knew that we were taking up the tube that day and that she was going to be breathing on her own and that death was imminent. So there was sadness, you can hear my voice, but there was also joy. Live with her. So again, we talked, we laughed, she was kind of out of it, but she still knew I was there, and anytime I would move in the room, she'd follow me. And my brother came in the room, and he put his head to my mother's face, and he was talking to her, and he looks at me and he says, "Boo," she said, "I love you." And my face was in her hand, and I said, "Ma, did you tell me you love me?" And she shook her head yes, and a tear came down her face. Live with her. And he said to me, she said it twice. So her best friend comes, and we're again listening to music, and we're trying to keep it as upbeat as possible, and we're telling stories, and we're telling my mother how much we love her. And she's not able to speak, but she hears us, and she's able to let us know that she knows that we're there. So the night goes on, and my brother and I have this horrible habit of laughing at the most inopportune moments. We've been known to laugh at funerals. We've been known to laugh if people fall. We've been known to, it's not very nice, but it's what happens. And I looked at him and I said, when my mother dies, if you make me laugh, I said, you're in trouble. So of course that got us hysterical. So we're having the most inappropriate conversation throughout the night. We're laughing, we're talking, we're joking, we're giggling, and we're talking to my mom. We've, said many beautiful things, with her, to her. And one of the hospice nurses come in, and she says she knew that I was Jewish and she wasn't. She says, "Do you mind if I pray with you?" Live with her. We'll take prayers from anywhere. I said, "Please do." So she prayed with us. And then my brother and I, everybody left at the night. All the visitors who had come to say their last goodbyes, they had left, and my brother stayed with me. Now, this wasn't my brother's mother. This is my mother. So we're talking, we're laughing, and now it's about 11:30, and I hear this. I said, "Barry, was that it?" No, we had been laughing. I mean, when I'm telling you, we were laughing like hyenas about the most inappropriate things possible. We go over to my mother. We sit with her for a second, and she takes one more breath, and then she dies. The beauty of this story is this: even in grief, we can have gratitude. Even in our darkest moments, we can find moments and we can find things to be grateful for. The last sound my mother heard was the sound of me laughing. The last words my mother spoke were, "I love you." At first I was very frustrated because I did not hear from hospice and the rabbi didn't come in. And I could have held on to that frustration, but I chose not to. Because had hospice come in or called me, when they said they called me at 5 o'clock that night, it's very possible my mother would have gone to hospice that night. And then the following day, she would have been gone. which meant that I might not have met the rabbi that I met that said those words to me, live with her. So I didn't get frustrated. I figured everything at this point is happening the way it's supposed to happen. And I just let it roll. When I met the rabbi and those three words were said, it changed the trajectory of my mother's final night. So I invite you that when you're in a space of sadness, see what plays out. When you're in a space of grief, see what pans out. And remember, 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 when you're watching a loved one go through something traumatic, live with them.
I want to cry, but I went through that story with you, and I appreciate that. You know, I mean, you're right. We can laugh because that's what we do best, and that's the best thing for us to do.
It's
And I get
interesting
it.
that we're having this conversation today because next month is a year that she's been gone.
Wow, that's fast. My goodness.
And I remember those words from that rabbi. And every now and again, I'll text him and I say thank you. And anybody I know that's experiencing death with a loved one and they're by their side,
Yeah,
I tell them, live with them, live with them.
that's
And I think it's a
that's
great
like,
message, even for us that are alive. Put down your cell phones and live with your people while they're alive.
I love that you did what you did because there is nothing worse than mommy thinking I'm leaving my baby behind. At least, like you said, the last thing she saw was you having fun. She saw you with your friends, your brother, your people came around. She saw that you were going to be okay, and that gives her that peace to transition peacefully without that angst and overwhelm of, oh my goodness, I'm leaving my baby. She's sad, but at that moment she could say she's going to be fine. And thank goodness.
I mean, the most inappropriate conversation, and we were just cracking up, like belly laugh, full on belly laugh. And yeah, the last thing she heard was that.
Wow, that touched me. Oof, that was intense. And thank you so much for sharing.
It was my
I know
pleasure.
that was not easy to put out there, but thank you for sharing that because that's extremely great advice for many of us when we're dealing with loss. And it doesn't matter, like you said, it doesn't matter what religion, what you believe, souls and spirits. That's okay. It's the physical person here with you that you can hug and kiss and talk to. That's really what we're going to be missing. We're going to miss the physical person being there, the one you pick up the phone because you're so used to calling and going, oh, I can't do that, you know. So thank you so much for sharing with us today, this
It
one.
was my pleasure.
That was amazing. Stick around, I'll be right with you. Whew. Wow. If that didn't, that touched me deeply because we've all lost someone important in our lives. So I'm not going to get too much into this right now myself, but thank you so much for tuning in. Um, I am Karina Felix. I am the CEO and founder of Affidian Network, and this is Tell Me a Story. And we'd love to hear your story, so please connect with me at some point and come on and tell your story. Thank you again for tuning in, and you could see all the other episodes or as well on demand on tv.affidianinc.com. Thank you. Bye.